So, all right, guys, welcome to the podcast. Adrian, and this is Hannah. Hannah, say hey. Hannah, say yo. I didn't even hear you say yo. Like,
Oh.
okay, there we go. I thought you weren't working for a split second. Yeah. So, right today, with Hannah, I'll be discussing. Well, I'm a male. Hannah's a female. Well, I don't know if she's a female, but yeah.
Confirm.
Yeah, so our topic of discussion right now is gender in computer games and also gender on social media. So the two are separate, and also for what I found and you will see is that how the two also connect together. So first things first, so in terms of you just go to slide 14. The images should appear for you guys on the screen too. So, in terms of generations of video games, as you can see, I was born in 1997. You were born in 1995. I'm sure you agree with me in terms of generations across video games. We've seen it all pretty much, and we've seen the differences. I don't know if you remember, if you see slide 15, so that's the fifth generation. PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, James Bond, GoldenEye. I'll destroy it, that game, by the way. You won't stand a chance. But yeah, and the sixth generation, Xbox, PlayStation 2, and the seventh, which is when I was in secondary school, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. And today's generation is what we're currently at right now on this point as we're speaking, the eighth generation. So it's a PS4, Xbox One, so on, so on. So when we talk about gender in computer games, uh, Hannah, this is what I came across. The format of male and video game characters, male and female video game characters, I'm sure is the same as like it's similar to the case of society and also music videos in the way that both genders are represented and portrayed. So, for example, if you look on slide 5, as you can see, uh, we have Captain Falcon on the left, and that's male video game characters are deemed as heroic, macho, valiant, and then across to the female side, it's more focused on them being cute, sexy, or innocent. And again, it's like the dominant stereotypes. So, what's your take on those? Like,
So it's clear that very obvious differences in the ways that males are presented across society. Just not absolutely, you just need to look at the images to know that there's a very clear difference there. I think what what strikes me is when you talk about how okay, so let's challenge this, let's make women more inclusive in being this heroic character. I challenge and I ponder about why it is that women have to have masculine qualities to be heroic. Why can't women be presented as strong by being having feminine, celebrating their feminine qualities? Like for example, the way look at the way um, you know to have someone as a hero. Why is that character there heroic? Why is it that because he's represented as being muscular, etc. Um, why is that? Make why does that make him a hero? That kind of thing. So I think fundamentally, I feel that it's okay that females and males have different qualities. I think biologically there is a physical, mental, emotional difference. I think the challenge lies more so in actually focusing and celebrating those female qualities. Now, that's one thing, but the other thing I think is what we focus on female qualities. Because if you look at the fact that these women here, innocent, sexy, cute, um, I feel that they are qualities which I think they undermine the characteristics of a female. I think they dismiss a lot of what makes a woman. The
So
fact,
you basically think that so if those characters had male, if they had like male traits as well, so well, not I won't say male traits, but traits which make, you know, which talk about the strengths. So if you think they were muscly, or if not even muscly, like just have something, even in terms of look, like the look on the face, would you say that will be a good way of reflipping the cycle?
actually, that's what I'm saying isn't necessarily always what's needed because this is my point. Why is it that we need to make a woman look muscly for her to appear strong? What about other strengths such as emotional resilience, things like that? What about the fact that, if you look at typically what a woman engages in a lot more in terms of her roles in society, why can't she be looked at somebody who exercises so much patience? Why isn't that a strength? I think that's what I'm getting at. Why is it that a woman has to have masculine qualities to appear strong and significant?
Okay, don't worry. So we're gonna get into that in a second. So this so with my research, which you're gonna find out in a second, you're gonna know why these are the answers, and I'll ask for you hear about your opinion again. So now moving on to social media now. Again, the same thing. Slide 6, the same thing. Social media. So in terms of gender, on social media. So with males, like their profile picture, it would like, for example, it would be it's still the same thing. So yeah, although a male is smiling, they still have something which flips that cycle and makes it, stereotypical. So for example, right here, you got The Rock's Instagram. He's smiling, but you can see his big muscles in his profile picture. So that's like symbolizing a hero. And if we go across to Bundle Brittany here, she's just she's just calm and just, you know, representing being women being cute and innocent. So I mean, uh, that's what it's like in profile pictures. Also, if we look at in terms of gamers now on the actual social media, so below we got typical gamer and we got Kylie Carter. So typical gamer, if you look at his content, uh, you can see that his content is more focused and related to his purpose. He's just straight, focused, and it's all, related to what he does. Yeah, he has one or two, like he has a picture of cars in there, but those cars are related to what he does across GTA. And if we go over to Kylie Carter, we can see that she does the same thing which typical gamer does. She's a streamer on Twitch and YouTube, same thing as typical gamer, but her pictures are more just the social side of her, just on a beach, uh, etc. So I do think that there is a message, and I did find it across. So males tend to, in that situation, males will be more focused, and their content would be more focused. But then if we go to females, they have to go sort of off topic and they have to bring a bit of glamour into it. And I think that this one reason is due to the challenge that women face overall, as if they're doing what a guy's doing, their people are going to be like, oh, she's a woman, did this and that. So she brings her own twist into it to bring all the attention, etc. And so what's your opinion on what do you think your opinion is on this?
I want to pick up on what you said about had she posted similar content to the male, what people's perception might have been. And I don't think you're wrong. I think there is still that stigma of something which is typically associated to a male activity. People subconsciously, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a conscious thought, but people subconsciously feel like, okay, she might not be as good at it, or she might not be as committed to it. But I also think it's wider than that. I think that society places a lot of pressure on women to be validated, and I think kind of trailing along from that point about had she had the same content, I think this is perhaps a way of women getting that same amount of attention, trying to show people that, I'm doing something worth looking at. And I don't think that's the case for every woman, but I definitely think that, females are under a lot of pressure, especially on social media, especially when you have all this advertising about being a certain way. And it's kind of confusing because, again, this is what I'm saying. When we have then, okay, increased female representation, she's represented as having masculine qualities or having superficial ideas of what a woman is. So that could be, perfect skin, perfect body, etc. So it's kind of like women are continuously still playing this chasing game of, trying to be, do the right thing, or be good enough. And I think that's got a lot to do with the way they represent themselves, even if they are, somebody, a figure like Kylie, for example. She is a Twitch streamer. Now, had I not read her bio, I wouldn't have known that by looking at that content. I wouldn't have had a clue about, what her role was. But straight away by looking at the other guy, because you can see from his content what he's into, what he does. So do you see how, for women, I think, again, the focus is so much about, being this flawless woman that, that unfortunately distracts a lot of people from, the purpose, the reason why you might want to put yourself on social media and use it as a tool to, get followers, etc.
Yeah, but yeah, to be fair, but I agree everything what you're saying. And for reference, yeah,
Disagree.
Kylie Jennifer she has a decent amount of followers and is growing every day. So, when people tune into her live streams, she's getting like the rewards, which she's what she truly does, thankfully. So if we go to slide 8, so now answering your point earlier, in case you didn't know that the uh video game communities and all well, generally video game communities and the social media video game communities are mainly male dominated. And the reason, I mean, there are females, but there's not as much. And females will tend to sort of be the male gaze in, you know, in these communities because they're not as much. It's almost like, yeah, in itself, the stereotypes of females are like rare and can be seen as satisfaction for the male. So if we go to you can see 11. So in terms of so actually going to 9, my previous point. So if we see a key case for this, this is a little case study that I came across. So this is nudity. Um, we'll come back to the previous point about it, but this point here will it's like the middle bit. So this is nudity on social media, but it's also nudity on social media expanding across to video game communities on social media and also the platforms like YouTube and Twitch. So this is Zoe Berger, and Zoe Berger is actually she's actually a shareholder now, and the reason why she done it was basically through content. Um, as you can see right here,
We're on slide 11.
yeah, slide 9.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is Zoe Berger, and yeah, she shows nudes on social media and gets, naked while streaming video games on Twitch and YouTube to get views and monetization, get her videos monetized to grow her channels. And she's became a shareholder due to it. So in this case again, it's relating to the previous point. just by her doing that, all the male gamers, because of what she does, and she's a female, in these video game communities, she's in that criteria straight away in the middle center of the male gaze.
Mm.
And you're forgetting that, I mean, some people in these video game communities, uh, I mean, I play video games, my friends do, etc. But there's some people who in the video game communities who tend to be, sort of in the nerds criteria where they don't do girls, or not because they're gay, they just, don't girls are not their thing, or going out partying ain't their thing. So when they see this type of thing now online, it's like it's almost is equivalent to pornography. So it's like, again, it's something capturing their attention. And now when Zoe is streaming, on these platforms, people would automatically like or subscribe because basically, to what they see. So yeah, so what's your opinion on this? I mean, like, yeah, it's candy for my eyes, but yeah, what's your opinion on this?
Um, okay, I'm not sure what when you say opinion. I mean, it's not my job. I don't feel it's up to any individual to say what somebody should or shouldn't do. But then I think, we can look at the effects of this. Now, kind of going back to the bigger picture, um, of gaming being an example, I think again there is this pressure of for women to get attention, they have to sexualize themselves, they have to be this and perfectionize themselves, they have to be this item which, if you look at advertising again, promotes. So this is what I keep saying this, but it's true. I think there's a bigger picture here about this pressure on women. Now, what I want to know is why is it not the other way around? Why are we seeing women do this kind of thing, and why we're not getting males doing this kind of thing? Is it because there's more male gamers? I don't know. I'm not convinced of that because again, I think there's a bigger picture here.
No, I mean, I disagree. I think it's if there are loads of male gamers, and generally as a male, if we see a female like this, boom, our automatic reaction is like, oh, you get what I mean? So it captures their
But
attention.
that's what I mean. It's like the reason why women are so sexualized and why I feel that they engage in this kind of thing is because it's like sex sells. But like you said, you just said it yourself firsthand. This kind of stuff, it gets your attention. Like it makes you think, okay, what is this? And you said yourself, people when they see this kind of content, their instinct is to subscribe to it because they want to see more. It's in that there's a biological instinct, if you like, to want to see more because it plays on desire. It plays on urges, and unfortunately with something like with and I'm being completely explicit here, with something like sex which is so strong, it kind of it prevents people from thinking about the rationale of what it is that they're engaging in, and it just like you said, you see that and it just grabs you. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a selling thing. It's like I almost want to say like a marketing thing because it's just you see it and you want it type thing.
Yeah. I
That's
mean, she did get banned. Some videos did get banned or taken down, etc. But because it's free will, there's still free will. So anyone who live streams with a webcam, like right now, what I'm doing, they can just do it. Once it's done anyway. And the viewers watching it, there's a massive line of viewers. And if her pictures, if you even type in her name in Google, like, they all come up and all that. And yeah, I mean, she was with a guy, and I think they did split after a while because the guy's mother found out about this. And yeah, it's just from a religious perspective, and just general, like some people, as self-respect, or whatever. Everyone has their reasons.
I also think that things like this are becoming more normalized, and because of that, people don't see as much of an issue in it, whereas you might find the older generations or people with slightly more conservative, I say conservative because they're more kind of firmer values or ideas about boundaries or what's acceptable or not, will kind of be more sensitive to this kind of stuff. Whereas you probably find that the younger generation and those who don't have that depth of thinking, or don't think outside of what they're feeling and what's in the moment, don't necessarily think that way. But going back to what I was saying, I think this stuff is becoming more normalized, which is why stuff like this is becoming more acceptable. Because even though you talk about like free will and stuff, yes, that's always been the case. But I think in terms of what's socially acceptable, this wouldn't have been socially acceptable, more so in the past than it is now. Like the boundaries are being pushed and stuff like this is happening increasingly.
Yeah. So, if we go down the slide, so the term e-girl. So also with Zoe, sometimes she gets called an e-girl. So e-girl is basically it has a couple of meanings, but some meanings are, you know, so they could represent slut, uh, just um, based on what certain female activities, do. Sometimes it could be just as like like a cheerleader sort of thing. People get named it, but yeah, this is a new term, you know. Well, it's been going on for a while. So I'll say this decade. This is a term
Mm.
that's been brought in due to online gaming. So, I mean, what do you think your opinion on this is like?
What do I think of an ego?
What do you think on your opinion of the term e-girl? Like, how does it appeal to you?
Uh, I don't know. I think it's interesting, firstly, that you said that this term is also applied to cheerleaders. And you said, am I right in saying that you said that you think it's come up because of gaming?
Yeah, online gaming.
Okay, so I'm assuming that you're talking about the activities of the girl that you just showed me now.
It can be, yeah, based on that. So if we categorize all girls in gaming, there could be a girl who's just gaming, who's friends with a guy who's a pro gamer, for example, and she supports him. That that can be an e-girl. Also with Zoe, an internet slut. That is also can be the term e-girl. So the term is like it's generalized. It's very, very generalized to, the female side of things, good and
I
bad.
do think that even though you say it's generalized, what's important here is the fact that okay, it might even apply to a girl who just games or supports a guy who's gaming, but at the same time underneath that still comes a girl who is sexualizing herself on that platform. um, the fact that the two can come under both, I think, strongly symbolizes the point that I don't know. I just think that when you see woman, I just feel there's an element of you kind of see one thing. I think there is that attitude. Um, this being an example of that. The fact again, the fact that you said that this applies to both. Um, I think, in fact, I can even read, the fact that you've got two different definitions here, and you're right.
Yeah.
One of them is generalizing just somebody who is, it doesn't necessarily have to be sexualizing themselves, but is involved in gaming like that. I think this, for me, I personally find that quite worrying, because why is it that a woman has to be seen like that on a gaming platform for her to have a label or a title or be recognized? Why can't a woman like a male be recognized because of her skill and her talent in gaming?
Well, that's a good answer. And once again, this all leads to why. So you said, why does a female have to be this, or why does it have to be that? If we scroll down to slide 11, so the past, present, and future world affairs in the gender in terms of gender in within video games.
Mhm.
As you can see, there's always been a higher amount of male gamers compared to female gamers, even though that right now today, currently in 2018 to 19, today 19, female gamers is rising, but there are still more males. And if we look in terms of video game development,
Mhm.
in the video game industry, in the next slide, slide 12,
Mhm.
you can see that it's
Big
mainly,
difference.
again, male dominated.
Mm.
Exactly. There's a big difference across all job roles, whether it's writing, production, design, arts, audio, programming, anything. It's male dominated. So, it's male dominated, and if a female is involved, uh, they tend to get targeted of why are you interested in
Involved.
that. What do you think of this? What do you think? So now that you've answered all your questions before, how do you feel now knowing this, that it's inside the development as well as online, it's all male dominated?
I want to say that I really strongly, without a doubt, believe that if there was more females involved in the construction of gaming, I think the gaming industry would look a lot different. I think the things that females are doing to get noticed in gaming would be a lot different. I think that the way they represent themselves and perhaps even characters as well, the way that they're formatted would be a lot different. That I honestly, that's without a doubt. I don't want to stereotype and assume things about the males involved in gaming. But if we look at the behaviors of females and the way they are portrayed in gaming and social media, I think, well, let's talk about gaming because this is what we're looking at now. I think that it shows that it's a male dominated area. It's a male arena. It suits males. It's whatever what a man wants. It's heavily dominated with violence games and sexualizing women. That sounds like a male arena, not a female arena.
Yeah, do I do like the point you're gonna bring. Even the same thing applies on social media within, as we discussed before, in terms of, the video game social media communities. It's like a male arena again, still, because there's male gamers on social media. The male gamers, go on social media, interact with each other, etc. There are females, but again,
It's a shame actually, because when you showed me the statistics of the amount of gamers there are, you know, yes, okay, there are slightly more males, but if you look at the distribution, you've almost got a 50-50%. And that's very different to the people who are involved in the construction of the gaming world. It's a massive difference.
But this goes back, though. I mean, you have to look at it this way. It's like, what do you study now as a subject? Because remember, to get these roles, majority, it comes down to the qualification, sort of route. So
But that's
if
what
we
I'm saying.
track back,
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's a shame that there because clearly there are enough women who enjoy gaming. It would be nice to have a similar representation in the construction of games.
yeah, I mean, because for example, I know a friend who did in first year, who did computer science, and she was the only girl, in the class, and she
Yeah,
dropped out. And
I was
again,
the only girl who did was in my physics A level class. I was the only girl. And it's true. I
yeah,
think
physics as well
uh,
is what's needed to do yeah, computer science as well. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, physics again. So it comes down to those areas seem to, again, it seems to be, male
women just don't go
dominated.
into them as much.
Yeah, they tend to go more into nursing, law, or yeah. So now that's been discussed. Our next important point was so again, it's all male dominated, and the way that females will be represented is based on uh to slide 13, the dominated. So the video games show and even on the same thing will apply within video game communities on social media platforms such as YouTube and Twitch too, in terms of, if there's more like male live stream content creators, when they talk, when they make jokes, it's going to be from a male side.
Mm.
So again, so it's all the idea of dominated male ideology and the perspective in the majority of video games. So what you see in video games, so for example, if we look at GTA 5, for example, when that came out in 2013, I remember compared to days of San Andreas was everyone liked that game, etc. San Andreas didn't even have this. It had some sexual stuff. That was again what the fourth. No, that was the PS2 and the Xbox generation of gaming. That was over. That was about 15 years ago. Compared to now, 15 years later, or 10 years later from then. GTA 5 now, so GTA San Andreas and 5, GTA 5 now, they've simulated an actual male sort of point of view in a lifestyle. So when it first came out in 2013, if gamers control their character to go in the strip club, you can actually see like the women were like naked, like is in just like real life, etc. And right now, because people, uh, journalists sort of got onto it. They about a year after or a couple months after they did do an update. So now, instead they're not actually naked. They just have bra and panties like San Andreas times. But they've stretched the boundary compared to years ago. So like right now when it came out is going linking to the Zoe Burger situation, like you said, the boundaries are getting stretched and it's becoming, more acceptable. And that was the case then. And if we look why that is, also if we go back in history,
Mm.
man did create the first ever video game.
Mm.
So, and it's still they create today, but at the end of the day, man did create, the first video game. So the whole video game world was created by man. So, what's your take on this, on, the GTA 5 uh, stuff? And because I know you have that on your PC, I
Yeah,
just found out. Yeah.
I've briefly played San Andreas, and I think whilst I agree that the extent to which the sexualization of women on there isn't as bad, I still think it was, it was still present because you had like prostitutes walking around, and that still is sexualization. And I think, like you said, and kind of like what I was saying before, is like all this is becoming more and more normalized, which is why boundaries are being pushed. And as a woman, I find that kind of worrying because I feel like, okay, to what extent, is that going to be pushed, and what effect does that have on people's attitudes when they're playing these games? Because you don't need to sit there and mentally evaluate what's going on. All this is feeding into subconscious and developing certain feelings and attitudes that a lot of the time players aren't even aware of. It's only when they are out in the world interacting and they have certain expectations, or they're interacting in a certain way, that it becomes apparent. That's why when you have these studies, they look at certain behaviors of people and then look at their levels and amount of gaming and the kinds of games that they engage in, to look at the effects of how these games work. And that, I know that's been done a lot with violence about the sexualization of women. I'm not sure about studies, but my point being is it shows that it really does have an effect on people's attitudes, on emotions, on behaviors and stuff. And seeing like
Do you
that.
think? Do you think? I mean, yeah, I sometimes, in some situations, I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's again, it's if you take a guy, for example, you picture a guy. So, all right, you got me. All right, let's just picture me. All right, I'm not like a stereotypical nerd. I'm sure you would agree with that. I'm not like, the stereotypical nerd looking or whatever, etc. So, in terms of some people like me, yeah, we involve the games, but uh, obviously, like we're not, we know or are aware of, not to do it, or these stuff they shouldn't been, shouldn't be done, etc. Like, or you being an idiot. But there's some people, like I said, who are more sort of, because there's different categories of gamers. You got, there's different categories of gamers. You got casual players, you got competitive players, you got there's just different types. It still fits in, to this same thing as real life people. It's like saying people in gangs, for example. Do you really truly think that video games or this stuff or uh, some of it influences that their behavior on it when some of them, to be fair, they don't even play games or because they don't have time. They're just out
Okay,
doing
firstly,
all that.
firstly, just there's 2 points I have. So when you kind of were talking about the different types of gamers, I think that okay, we're looking at here and now, but we have to take our minds outside a little bit of the spectrum of time because if we just focus on the different types of gamers today, we're not going to get an accurate picture of how, as gaming has changed, how that spectrum of different types of gamers has changed. So, for example, what was considered a nerd gamer and what you consider a non nerd gamer, say 20, 30 years ago, would that still be the same as a nerd and non nerd gamer today? That's another thing. My point just being that I think there's a bigger picture here. Second of all, when we talk about things like violence and the way they might affect people's attitudes and behaviors, there are lots of things which attribute to obviously violent behavior, gun culture, etc. But there's no doubt that what you surround yourself in, whether that's gaming or TV, music, they influence your mindset. They influence what you are comfortable with. Whatever, even you can look at it in any dimension, even food. That whatever you consume is kind of like what your body gets used to. Whether that's physically or mentally, emotionally. And I think that in terms of gaming, surrounding yourself with stuff softens you to what's acceptable or what's appropriate, whether that's violence or sexuality. And I think, as we know, what we mentioned about boundaries kind of dissolving and becoming softer, I think that's what's running the fact that okay, let's just really hypothetically, okay, now from before where you didn't see this kind of content which is present on this slide, now it is present. What's the next thing that's going to entice gamers to keep playing? Because that's how marketing works. Is wanting more. Think about it on every level, whether it's food or whatever it is. It's all about bigger and better and more kind of interesting and engaging. So it's kind of like, so where do you draw the line? Where does the idea of morals and boundaries and respect, where does that play into exposure and things like that? And even when it comes to violence, like thinking about, like your fellow human being, I mean, where do the boundaries about how you respect one another come in to that kind of thing? And me saying this, I'm not talking this one, in one channel, because I also appreciate that from a gaming point of view, you are going to have targets. You are going to do what the buyer wants, and that's normal, in any kind of consumerist thing. It's just, I think there's, and again, I can't tell people what they should and shouldn't do, but I think there has to be a level of accountability and responsibility from a gaming manufacturer point of view, because they are allowing, I don't know who regulates these bodies, but they're allowing this content. It exists because they make it. If they didn't make it, it wouldn't exist and people wouldn't be exposed to it.
Yeah, it's the
And it kind of comes back to actually the whole, the male and female percentages and who's involved in gaming. It's kind of, I don't want to even say this is because of males, because it's not, because males are just as, smart and conscious and aware of what they're making as women are. I think maybe having women in that world more might create more pressure in terms of what they might want to see and not see. But I don't think the fact that it's dominated by males takes away the responsibility males have and what they create. Otherwise, that would be assuming that males don't have the intelligence to think for themselves what's good and what isn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just it's like it's a perspective of, like general. It's the view of a male lifestyle, like what I was saying. That's basically the reason it's why. But also so now that's within games. One thing that we could link, one key thing that I found we can link in the gender representation in video games, that also comes into the same thing with social media. And I think you mentioned it earlier. I'm glad you said it. You mentioned something, you mentioned it being equivalent to the terms of advertising. Uh, Funny enough, a couple of authors, Torta Jada, Lalanda, Ariuna, Nura, and Martinez, 2013. Their book and article should appear on the screen right now. I actually read that article. I went into it. They actually said that, for example, in terms of social media profiles, uh, they're equivalent to advertising.
Mm.
So just like games, how it's fantasy mindset. The same is also applied on social media. It's again, a fantasy um, aspect. The males, advertising their, stereotypes, and then females are again also, sort of advertising theirs. Um, and it's interesting because it's not like a dig in this sense. It's also can seem positive. For example, women, are about beauty, and every woman shows that, good or bad, good intentions or bad intentions. Like, um, that's something that's in their mind. Guys, we show something. Men, straight men, let's just say, let's be more specific. Straight men, show stuff that makes them masculine, whether it's by mindset, what they're doing, or what they're thinking, mind, all that. So what's your, again, and if we, I mean, go just like with video games, they basically duplicated you know duplicated this, and it's like it's all about the male gaze. And um so, I mean, what do you think on this real quickly, or what's your small little...
Can you just clarify what you meant about male gaze?
The male gaze, so basically, in media, the term male gaze is like what I was saying. There's also a female gaze as well. There is a female gaze and there's a male gaze. The male gaze is basically, it's the male's lifestyle. So what the male sees. So to trigger that male gaze, to interact with that male gaze, females, they interact with that male gaze by, uh, just generally could be by activity in what they do, and that interacts with the gaze. So if it's sexual, they're gonna trigger a feeling in the guy to, you know, give them attention in a certain way. And with females again, the gaze is more of what they do. So the female gaze is more of like what women focus on. So beauty,
Mhm.
not more beauty and emotions. So yeah, that's what that's what it really means. But so we've had discussions about the stereotypes and the dominant ideology. Now this is the interesting, if we go to slide 19, these are interesting events now. So this these make this makes your argument, it is the counter to what we were discussing before. So, or not the counter exactly, but it's like a challenge. So, um, yeah. So, for example, these are some. It's a female developer, and the bottom picture below is a female organization where they talk about the way females get treated in terms of online gaming, because some are prone to, horrible messages from guys. They get called all types of things that uh, it's like normalized, and they were challenging that. Had their own event about it, etc. And their social media again will be the same thing. The way that they think about the gaming world, they also show it on their social media.
Mm.
So, what's your opinion to that? So they're all women teaming up together, developers, gamers, having an event and discussion panel, and also the um, female developer right there. What's your opinion about that?
I like this makes me really happy because it's really good that women are feeling more able to and more empowered to be able to hold events like this and come forward and get involved in gaming. And I think it's important that they have some female only spaces because it gives them probably the safety and the space to be able to discuss things like you're mentioning, that they're experiencing in the gaming world and the challenges that they're facing. And I think it's really needed. The things that we were looking at before do still exist. These issues do still exist in the gaming world. And clearly, as we looked at, the statistics, okay, the gap isn't as big in terms of people that play games, but in terms of people who are involved in the manufacturing of games, etc., it is really low. So to see this kind of stuff happening is amazing. It's great. Um,
Would you
and
follow some of these women on social media?
absolutely, I mean, I'm such a massive advocate of supporting women who are trying to push in arenas which are so male dominated. So I mean, I wouldn't classify myself as a gamer, but any woman who is pushing herself like these women are, absolutely have my support. I think that, in fact, you know what? And it's funny because I'm actually seeing more and more people that I know, personal friends, who are becoming quite, serious gamers, and I've had conversations with them about it, and I think it's really
Oh,
good.
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's only as of recently, but Um, in fact, I didn't even know that this particular girl that I spoke to was a gamer. It's only because she started putting on her social media more. Um, but I like just to see the way she's involved in gaming looks the same as I see male people involved in gaming, and that's good because do you see like they're not letting that limit them or letting them that shy away. And I think that's only probably more recently, and that's probably because of events like this and because more women are talking about the issues that there are in gaming.
Yeah. So, okay, that's interesting. Like, again, good point. So, if we go across to the right side, um, we got two games which I've played. I've played. We got Lara Croft and
Oh,
Mirror's
that.
Edge. Now, Lara Croft, this is Lara Croft from the PlayStation 1. So this is from the the fifth generation, so back, in the early 90s, 2000s. In that game now, she challenges or she is an example, or that's an example of a game of what you were talking about earlier. Why can't female characters be heroic their own female way? I think this is a perfect example here. Uh, she's looking good in what she wears. She's looking good. Not, it's appealing, but it's appealing sort of in the right way. It's not like nothing's crossed the line. Nothing's, is over the top boundary wise, and she can do stuff what a guy character can do. And the same thing applies to again on top Mirror's Edge, free runner game. She's a woman, and she again has the same strength and powers. She still might not look it, but what she does is equivalent to what a guy's role would be in a common stereotypical video game. So, what's your opinion on these? now that you've seen it?
Similar, I guess I'd be kind of reiterating what I said before that, I think we've kind of pushed the boundaries in terms of getting females to be heroic. And I don't think this is bad necessarily because there are women out there who are very physical and are strong. You have women weightlifters, you have, women who do martial arts and are amazing at it and compete and stuff. So I don't even think this is a bad thing. I just think that there's a gap there in terms of making a woman seem heroic for female qualities. Um,
But do you think that just generally seeing this,
mm,
does it give you more confidence and make you happy to some extent that,
yeah, I think it does.
there are games out there which the woman
It's a
is
start.
powerful?
I do because it's a start.
You
Um,
said it's a start. Laura Croft, this came out when you were like when you're probably 2, 3 years old. So it's something
it's
that's
not about
been,
no, no. Okay, but that in fact that kind of goes to show what I'm saying. It's a start as in, okay, yeah, they've got women as heroic characters, but it doesn't stop there. And the fact that you said that this came out that many years ago shows that since from then and now, has there been that much difference? Is what I would challenge. And again, yeah, okay, so there's this that came out then, but again, there's that gap of someone being a hero because of feminine qualities. And as I said, that's not a negative point because having these women with these characteristics, there are actually women like that, and it's a good thing that that there is this representation. But it would be good to widen that spectrum by having different types of heroic women for attributes that a lot of women do have, which aren't celebrated as much in the gaming world or in other forms of media.
what would you say those attributes will be? Just
So,
name them real quick.
okay, so I think, and I know some people might argue with this because obviously everyone's different to some extent, but generally, because of women's, the kinds of things that the roles that they are involved in, they're very patient, they have a lot of mental strength and emotional strength. um, and even physical strength, I'd say, but not necessarily like fighting people. But like me and you always talk about how moms always achieve so much and they're amazing and stuff because they do get tired, but they do a job that has to be done. So
Yeah, there are games again, like I said, which cover those. And that is a game I'm telling
okay,
you.
you say that, and that's a good thing. But I think what's interesting is how people might not be as aware of them, or maybe that's just me because I'm not in the gaming world. But see, like the other games like COD and San Andreas and Halo and stuff, because they're on media so much more, or maybe it's because they have more players, they're more known than maybe some of the games that you're saying do exist.
And Halo as well has female Spartans too. The main Spartan's a guy, but there are like, you know, there are, but it's again, it's linked to what you said that, you know, you're not aware of it. So I think, you know, them people being aware, and that's what these panels are trying to do, you
Mm.
know, and do that. So moving on from that, so if we go in the middle picture, I Cupquake, a she's falls into a lot of categories. So she is a gamer. She's also a YouTuber, and she started out, you know, gaming Minecraft, etc. And now she does, you know, videos cooking with her husband, all that. She actually broke a Guinness Book World Record in terms of subscribers for her YouTube channel. She was doing, you know, the Minecraft game,
Yeah.
and she again counters. Well, I wouldn't say counters, but it's a challenge. Most guy gamers, when they would see her name, would be like, "Oh, it's I is Cupcake. Oh, she's beautiful, etc." But she didn't like cross the boundary compared to Zoe. So, you know, she's just said, "Hey, this is me. This is who I am. This is what I do," and she just followed it through that without, you know, taking the speedy shortcut of triggering the male gaze with, you know, female um, body parts. So, what do you think of this? What do you think of you seeing her and stuff? And she has a YouTube channel. You should check it out. You probably like
I,
her content too.
I will. Um, as I said before, I hugely respect women who are persevering in anything, to be honest, especially in things like gaming where there aren't as many women recognized. And I just want to say on what you said, how people looked at her and said, oh, you know, she's really beautiful, but she didn't kind of engage in what Zoe was engaging in. I think it comes back to, I think, a little bit about what's seen as attractive, because, okay, yes, what Zoe's doing might, like you said, attract the male gaze, but then the attention that she's getting, is that entirely because of who she is as a gamer, or is that because she's attracting herself because of what she's doing sexually? Whereas what's her name again? I has cup, is that her name? What's her actual?
Her actual name. Let me search it. I can. I
But
has.
she, I feel, you know, her engagement with her followers, etc.
Her
Why
name's Tiffany Garcia.
Tiffany?
Yes,
Okay,
31 years old, from Los Angeles, California,
nice to
West
know.
Coast.
But she, I feel that her followers are probably more engaged with her as a gamer, um, because, like you rightly said, you know, yeah, okay, people said that she was attractive, etc. But they probably had that respect for her as a gamer because that's what she was pushing out there as her focus. You know, her as a gamer more than anything else.
And she's had nominations for Shorty Award for Best in Gaming, Teen Choice Award for Webstar. Yeah, so she's, been, putting it out there, and the same thing will apply on her social media. So again, now on her social media, it's it's this it's this it's the same. She says what she does, but again, women have their own way of what they do, and she's attracting the male gaze, but in the right. Would you like, if you check out her Instagram, for example, um she's attracting, I could say that she's attracting the male gaze, but in the right way.
The problem okay, two things quickly. The problem with saying in the right way is what might be, okay, when you're saying the right way, you're talking about like sexual boundaries, right? But then, and this isn't necessarily my opinion. This is just an argument that I'm thinking of, like a perspective. People might say, okay, but then if she's focusing still on her physical attractiveness, is she taking the attention away from her as a gamer? You could also counteract the argument by saying, well, naturally women are more about their look, like they like to beautify themselves, whereas men aren't like that. Like they don't, like, for example, spend time doing their makeup and stuff like that. I mean, some might, like, that's the minority, but generally speaking, you know, they're a little bit more, like, you know, if you looked at, you know, stereotypically, if you looked at the difference between, like, you just looked at a gamer girl's profile and a gamer guy's profile, even somebody who isn't engaging in sexual stuff, there is going to be that difference. And I think that to some extent will always be there because men and women are different. But I think, again, going back to what I was saying, is generally, you know, this girl's kind of excelled as a gamer because she's pushed herself as a gamer out there.
And
And I
also
feel,
as a general YouTube content creator with her cooking and stuff.
well, exactly. Whereas I feel someone like Zoe has made her sexualization the center maybe of her, the attention that she gets for her gaming, which for me personally speaking is kind of sad because I feel you have an opportunity, you know, you're a gamer, you have skill, so sell yourself as that, because you know that is
Oh,
something
she's not good at the game.
well then
Nah,
maybe that's an interesting point, maybe that's the point, you know,
that's the
the
point.
fact
She's
that,
not good at the game.
but
Yeah,
that's interesting that you I mean I don't know because I'm not a
because she's
gamer,
not pro. She's not a pro
but
Call of Duty player.
the fact that you're saying
Yeah,
that might reveal something about what women feel they have to do to get somewhere, or if they're not very good at something, they try and compensate that with sexualization. It's just a general, you know, that's just a sideline point. But going back to this Tiffany girl, you know, I think I personally really rate her. I respect her.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that was it. that was it. And yeah, so thanks again, H, for coming on. We had a little, mini male versus female opinion or type of choice. But yeah, thanks for tuning in the podcast, guys, and that's it. Peace.